mighty empire that stands.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Put That On My List, the show where the guest comes in with the movie and the questions. I'm Trey Jones.
And I'm Spencer Lane.
And today we have a lovely guest with us.
Indeed.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cassie Flanagan. I'm a pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah, it is a pleasure. So you have come to us with a film.
Yes. So what I've brought today is a film from 1989, and it is Kenneth Branagh's Henry V. Probably one of my top 25 favorite films of all time.
Henry the V.
Henry V. That is what I Googled because I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. Actually, I figured out what movie I was going to watch when I reread Trey's message, and he said the director in there, and I was like, all right, perfect, because I don't know. I guess this is like a big popular thing. I didn't know. I'm not a big Shakespeare head. The only Shakespeare movie I've seen is Romeo plus Juliet with Mr. DiCaprio, which is
which we all
freaking
know is very.
amazing.
It's very fun because that's my first question actually for you guys is what your experience is with the Bard's work with Shakespeare. Do you guys enjoy Shakespeare in any form?
Well, I come from a dramatic family. I think I texted you the other day when I was finishing up the movie that thankfully my mother is like a Shakespeare historian. She's got all of the works. She's led several student Shakespeare productions. I personally have never been in a Shakespeare production, but I have seen many of them. But I definitely prefer a film adaptation over most of the play adaptations I've seen, mostly because local dramatic actors don't seem to get the dialogue very well. And so it's almost like, is this person being insulted right now? Is this person being complimented? What's happening? Because the actor is just kind of running through it like they memorized it, and that's exactly what they did. And I think the language, let's be honest, is the hurdle to get over. And I had to read Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth for class in high school. And, we all laughed at "you are a saucy boy" and stuff like that. But
I've
what
heard,
you egg
yeah.
stabs him.
I've heard of that experience. As somebody who was homeschooled to a college, I didn't know how real it was because reading Shakespeare on its own is not the most fun experience, but it's a medium that really needs to be watched. It would be like reading the screenplay for Jaws for pure entertainment value.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I look at it too. If you're a screenwriter, you read screenplays. I've read screenplays. I don't read that many of them because ultimately it's more important to see the final product. You're just making an instruction manual for a final product. And at the end of the day, reading the Shakespeare play transcripts are usually better done alongside the visual aid because you are going to miss things in this day and age. We do not speak like that anymore, so it's understandable. You're going to miss details. Basically having the whole transcript alongside, or at the very least just watching with subtitles, because I watch with subtitles.
We could watch with subtitles? Because I got 5 minutes in and I was like, this is going to be rough without subtitles.
It's very interesting because the movie does a few very interesting things. For example, the conversation in French between Princess Catherine and her handmaid, that is 5 minutes of unsubtitled French.
True.
And all that the viewer has to, if they don't know French, all that the viewer has to understand that scene is just pure facial acting. And I want to actually take a second and just say this movie has a stacked cast and crew. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
Christian Bale.
We've got.
You'd think he would have had a bigger part.
Yeah.
He was top billing. It was Christian Bale and then everyone else's name, and I was like, I don't even know who any of these other people are.
That must have just been alphabetical order.
Well, because Ian Holm, who was Captain Llewellyn, he's also Bilbo in Lord of the Rings,
and the android in Alien.
Yeah.
That's why he looks familiar.
The
okay.
princess who we were just talking about, that's a young Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
What else has she been
So
in?
she's not actually French. You said that was something that you were like, that was a turnoff. She's not actually French.
No, she's British.
But if you can get over her being British, feel free.
She was in that movie. She's in that movie. kind of like Mary Poppins, but not
Nanny McPhee.
Yeah,
Nanny
Nanny
McPhee.
McPhee.
She was in that movie, a bunch of other stuff.
Was she Nanny McPhee?
Yeah.
Yes. she
Oh.
was Nanny
A
McPhee.
pre-Harry Potter Robbie.
You got to get to
Coltrane-
the end of the movie.
Yeah.
She looks great.
A pre-Harry Potter Robbie Coltrane. So before he
Oh.
was Hagrid, he was Falstaff. He was
That
yeah.
is why
That
he
makes
looks
sense to me.
familiar.
yeah.
That's why he looks
Judy,
familiar.
and in that same group, Judi Dench. Dame
Yes.
Judi
Yes,
Dench was
I
in
told
Dame
you
Nell
Judi
that.
Bailey.
Dench.
And then that very young Christian Bale as poor old Robin the luggage boy, who Henry carries across the fields of Agincourt. At
Yes, the very
Spoiler alert, by the
dramatic
way. Watch
Christian
the
Bale
movie
carrying
first.
shot.
Spoiler alert for this thing. that
Spoiler
happened
alert
like
for this
60,
whole thing.
600
And
years
just
ago.
to kind of like blow your guys' minds, this was a big movie, right? It
Yeah.
seems like
Huge.
it's a very theatrical movie. It was shot in 7 weeks.
Whoa.
It was shot in 7 weeks on a budget of $7.5 million.
I could believe the budget because I'll say this much from a filmmaking perspective. We've had this sort of Lord of the Rings syndrome that has come out of the 2000s where every battle sequence you need to have that ultra wide shot to see like just thousands and thousands and thousands of, digital figures or
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
composited human beings on green screen. And it's like this film manages a large scale of warfare with ultimately probably a few hundred extras. Like not
Yeah.
many. It's like they're saying the French had 10,000. There were not 10,000 people on set.
True.
So yes, I could
Yeah.
believe 7 mil.
Crew as well. The DP for this, the cinematographer, is a guy named Kenneth Branagh. He a year later did Of Mice and Men.
Oh,
Yeah, and then the composer Pat Doyle, he went on did the music for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah.
one.
British.
Ye-
A lot of
of
British.
course.
A lot of British. This is a very very.
Wait, I
British
do have a
movie.
question.
Yeah.
The guy that shows up throughout the movie to talk to us, is that like the actual director or is that some guy they like
No, that's
he's just
so
part of the
he's-
cast?
He was just a cast member. Kenneth Branagh directed the film. As
Okay.
Well. That guy is the
Chorus,
acts
or-
as the narrator.
Yeah.
Okay, he's because I saw him credited as chorus and I was like, that's not Kenneth Branagh. So
No.
I was like, huh.
No.
Which actually, coming down to my second question here, is this the first for the both of you? Is this the first Shakespeare film adaptation you've seen?
No, I've seen
No.
The Tragedy of Macbeth. I've seen I forget which year it was. I think it was the 1960s Romeo and Juliet adaptation where everyone was the appropriate age and it made it suitably interesting.
Creepy, interesting.
Um,
What?
Yeah.
How does it and then you said you've seen
I've seen Romeo plus Juliet from the 90s with Leonardo DiCaprio and they had guns, which
Yeah.
as a little high school boy, what was I, 13 when I
goodness.
started high school?
Dang.
13-year-old little high school boy, I was like, this is freaking amazing because dude,
You saw a firearm and you just had like a little neuron activation.
yeah, because it was like, and also the fact is Leonardo DiCaprio, like it was like 90s guys and it was like 90s outfits, which I think like the 90s is like the coolest era like ever, fashion and stuff. I don't know, like I just like the way it was
Well,
like.
how
it's
does
pretty
this
cool.
stack up in terms of comparatively to those other films
Um,
in your opinions?
I think Tragedy of Macbeth is an interesting comparison because it's black and white. It's very recent and it's not meant to look real. It is meant to look theatrical. The sets are very minimalistic, but this film goes for the realism. From what I've read about, the costuming and sort of the way the battle sequences were directed, it was pretty realistic. Not the Saving Private Ryan of medieval combat, but pretty realistic. So for what it was, I thought it went well with the realistic angle.
It's very interesting you mentioned costumes, like the costume design. This film actually won the Oscar in 1990 for Best Costume Design. And
Nice.
Branagh got nominated both as Best Actor and also as Best Director. So good year for
Deserved.
For Henry
He
V.
was 25 when he did this movie.
Deserved.
Yeah.
He walked away. He got that early.
I will mention after we discussed kind of some of those other options. Branagh's done a couple more of these adaptations. If you like this one, I think that Henry the Fifth is the best of them. But his Hamlet is also spectacular, and I believe I could be getting my wires crossed with a different director, but I believe it was Branagh. There's a film adaptation of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and it stars a bunch of very talented people. I think Branagh's in it, and Keanu Reeves is also in it. Fresh out in his like trying to get away from Bill and Ted era.
Oh yeah.
Like he was trying like more and more serious roles.
Jonathan Harker in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah. So I do have a question, like
Yes.
on an artistic level. If you guys had to pick one standout technical aspect of the film, what would you pick?
I'll let you start this one.
Okay, I'll start this one. Also, to answer the last question really quickly,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not a big Shakespeare guy. I think I went on record saying it was very hard to understand, but I will say that I still think it went pretty well. I do prefer Romeo plus Juliet because it was more like connected to me and as a person because I wasn't in middle England or whatever. But now to go to the real question that was just asked, I think
Italy.
the technical aspect that stood out most to me was this is gonna sound like, I'll explain it, the lighting, because everything was like candles and stuff, and knowing what I know about film, I was like, they have some pretty awesome badass dramatic lighting for everything being just candle light. So
Yeah.
I was watching that and I was like, not understanding half the words they say. But I was like, at least it looks really cool.
I will just before you answer, Trey, I was going to say lighting as well. For me, lighting in this movie is done so well because there are, especially in the nighttime scenes, because one of my biggest pet peeves about a lot of like modern films is they'll have a campfire scene and you just can't see anybody. Like there'll be some fantasy movie and you just can't see anybody, and that's not how. If you're ever in a campsite and there's a fire going, you can see other people. We don't need to make nighttime scenes look as dark as they do, and I think this movie does a great job of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this much about lighting. It is all about the dynamic range, not in the technical aspect, but in the theatrical aspect, where the film can be very dark at times, but you always have those brightest points to, accent people's like figure so that you know where people are. You can see their expression even in the darkness. I think the thing I really don't like about I saw clips from I think it's The King, which is the Timothy Chalamet
I heard
movie,
about that. Yeah,
which is based on
I think it's
this
based on
play,
this play. Yeah.
but not the same dialogue. But I remember seeing the scenes and I was like, this is a lot like a lot of the other movies I've seen in the last 5 years. Not to say it's not visible, it's just really flat. And I'm tired of everything being filmed perfectly. That's kind of the way things are with digital filmmaking. It's like everything has to be exposed perfectly. Man, if you messed up a shot or the exposure or something on set with film, 30 and more years ago, you just rolled with it. Unless you really messed it up. But like, if it's a little grainy in the dark, people sitting in the audience, they're not gonna notice that.
That's just how it was back in the day.
Yeah,
you
can
watched
still
the
see
movie
it.
and you liked it. You said no one walked out of the film in the 1980s, 1989s after seeing this and was like, oh, "Gosh, that campfire scene was just so grainy." Huh.
Yeah.
Worst movie ever.
I got a film coming up, and it's got a campfire scene, and it gets very grainy at the end. Mind you, it is also shot on a digital camera, a cheap digital camera.
No, it has
but
to be
is.
perfect, Trey. You said
Has
it
to be
yourself.
perfect,
Digital cameras
Trey.
have to be perfect.
I meant that, as like a straw man, as something that you shouldn't do.
Okay.
Thank you very much. But
Okay.
yeah. To not make this all a conversation about the lighting, other things I really liked about this. I thought the camera work was really cool. Like a lot of great tracking shots. It seemed very much like it really drew your eye. It kind of created these frames within a frame a lot of the time, or like very classic Spielberg one takes where like it kind of draws back from a wide into a close, the actors come into frame and it's like you didn't cut the camera, but you got a new image.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just something, it's like, I don't think it's too distracting when you see it. It's not like the director's really trying to show off.
Yeah.
But it is very pleasing to the eye when you do see that successfully.
It is.
So,
And I guess on the topic of shots like that, I did have a question. What is, if you guys had to pick one, what is your favorite shot in the film?
I will go first because in case this is everyone's favorite shot, I don't know.
There's a chance that.
Okay, wait. I want to say it's the shot where he's carrying Christian Bale, but I will say there was one at the beginning of the movie that I really, really did like. It's when Henry first comes in and the doors are open and he's backlit and he was just a silhouette and I was like, this guy's.
He looks pretty cool.
This guy means business.
That's such a great shot.
This guy means business. But I will say it's the
It's the 3-minute long uninterrupted.
Oh, it was
tracking
3
shot.
minutes.
It was a 3-minute long uninterrupted tracking shot. The
it's like
the
a Gregorian
cinematography
chant
ability.
they're doing too.
yes,
Like the
it's
song they're singing, it's like
no,
a Gregorian
no, it's
Yeah.
no. I mean, it's so good. The ability to essentially keep it on, because what it does is it keeps it on Henry. It keeps it on Henry and Bale the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
But the cinematography of allowing that to happen and to tell little stories as he walks along. We see Nim mourning what's the other guy's name?
the other guy.
Yeah, mourning the other guy by the tree after he got stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
The Montjoy the Herald stops.
Oh, and his son is dead.
Oh yeah, and his son's dead. Montjoy the Herald stops the French women from like attacking Henry as he's carrying the body. They pass by a few other people. It is just like
the his uncle was in frame and then he walks out and then later he like comes back on somewhere else. I'm like boy, this is like kind of real because they wouldn't just stay in one place for 3 minutes. So the fact the uncle walked back in later, I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I always like filmmaking that feels like a documentary. Not in that it's rough, but in that it looks unscripted while still coming together into something good. It's how I feel with everything. It's how I feel when I'm reading some of the stories in our fiction writing class, and you have the character just
Gotta bring that up every
this
episode.
is the theme of the story. Yes, we have to bring it up every episode because we like this stuff. This is the theme. And I was like, I do not want to be reminded that this is a narrative. I want to believe this is real. And it doesn't have to be realistic for me to believe that.
Okay, good.
I get really hooked into some wacky stuff, but
Okay, good.
it doesn't feel like a narrative, no matter how wacky it is.
Because mine's not realistic at all.
Yeah, I mean,
Dude.
that's fine.
I'm so excited.
I'm probably going to like it.
hope.
I'd take that over, some sludge that feels like a swamp to get through.
I want to say about the Herald. He just kept coming back, dude. I was with Henry. I was like, dude, we're not surrendering. Stop coming back. And then he'd be like, listen, do you surrender yet? No. He'd leave. He'd come back like 5 minutes later. You surrender yet? I was about to be like,
dude, leave
listen.
us alone.
I was with Henry when he attacked him. I was like,
he was
get
a
out.
nice guy. I mean, like, it's not like he's like, I don't want to see you all die. It's just like, we're going to turn around and absolutely decimate
there's
you
also no explicit, and that's, I think, the very neat thing of having this kind of messenger character is there's no explicit bad blood between him and Henry. He's the Herald of France, but like, there's this mutual kind of respect throughout the movie.
Don't shoot the
and
messenger.
It's only after the French have committed this heinous war crime by killing all the luggage boys that he's like, dude, what the hell?
Yeah,
I'm so pissed off at you. Why did this happen? And he's like, hey, we need to clear our dead too. I will say.
Also, you won. Okay,
Yeah.
you won.
Yeah,
Don't
right.
kill me.
He was like, you won. I'd be like, good.
I will say one thing that I think that this film did an amazing job at is, I think, relatively tastefully showing. I think it's very easy to take stuff like Henry V and Shakespearean plays, because Henry V isn't really a tragedy. It's kind of just a drama.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy or like if you just read it straight, it's not really a tragedy. In the end, you know, Henry wins, England wins. Henry marries
Gets
Princess
to
Kate.
date his cousin.
Like,
Yeah, he gets to date his
lasts
cousin.
one generation and then
Lasts
as
one
says-
generation and it's gone.
Yeah.
But like, it's not necessarily that big of a tragedy, and I think that this film did a good job in kind of turning it into one. I think that you get to see the way that war and violence twists Henry across this excursion, and how I think it's obvious. I think it's the death of the luggage boys scene
Yeah.
where he's like, why did I do this?
Well,
Like, why
because
did this happen?
he's trying to sort of before the battle the night before, you know, nobody's sleeping, they're just sitting there, and he's just trying to get people, he's just trying to get a lay of the land. And it's interesting because he goes in disguise to these guys at the fire and kind of wants to get their opinion on all this stuff. And he's like, on one hand, he's defending his decisions in the third person, but on the other hand, once they actually go away, he's just like, man, he kind of had a point.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
maybe this isn't worth it. I mean, like I would feel like if a bunch of people died that it was my responsibility. And then what happens? It's the luggage boys. It's like that wouldn't have happened if I didn't pursue this.
Yeah.
You know?
He played Undercover Boss. While I was watching that scene, I was like, this is an episode of Undercover Boss.
Yes.
And he was like,
Oh,
what do
my
you think of
goodness.
Henry? And they were like, I don't much like Henry. And he was like, why?
That's an interesting
Yeah.
opinion to have.
I did
Well-
like at the end though when the actual people came in, and they're like, "What's going on here?" And he's just like, "It's me, Henry." And they're like, "All right." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, well, like that was Ian Holmes' character. Who
Yeah,
helped
that was
him?
Llewellyn.
I was like, it makes sense because he actually like had like knew him. Like the other
Yeah.
guys, I could understand if they hadn't like actually met
Yeah, they
the
had.
king yet. They
yeah.
wouldn't know him by face that easily.
And then there's the tragedy of his old like drinking buddies, Falstaff and Bardolph and Nim and the other guys.
yeah, they're all
Yeah.
kind of dying off.
They're all
as,
dying
as,
off.
as it goes on.
One of them stole from a church, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
Yeah,
Which
and
I'm
then-
like,
and then he hung him,
yeah,
and then they cut back to. I loved that match. It wasn't a full match cut, but it was kind of a match cut of like going back to like the flashback to him and being like, "Oh, don't hang a thief, my your highness," and then
Yeah.
Kenneth Branagh was like, "No, I will," or he says some kind of line.
yeah.
But it's
Responding to
interesting
that.
because this was something my mother was bringing up. She's saying, like, this is something that is very talked about, these flashback sequences, because they don't seem to be flashbacks completely. It's like what there's the actions taking place, them at these parties, them drinking, are the flashbacks, but the words coming out of their mouths are not. It's like the words coming out of their mouths are in relation to the current thing taking place.
I thought I was
I
tripping.
don't think he would go up to him and be like, "Hey, on the off chance, don't hang a thief," and he's just like,
You will hang.
You will hang, and it's just like, but he's not even opening his
That's-
mouth. It's like,
I thought I was tripping that
That's
or
whole
like I
time.
never knew. It's like
That's fascinating.
It's
I
like-
never really realized that.
it's because it's not Henry V's flashbacks. It's all the flashbacks
It's-
are taking place from their perspectives
Their perspective.
as
yes.
they're dying, and it's like, whether or not it's a, kind of a I wish I had said this, or this what might have been, or just the idea that they're thinking back and being like, this used to be my drinking buddy, and now he's the king, and I'm gonna die, and he's making the decision, and it's like coming to terms with that fact, because I don't see how those could be normal flashbacks.
Yeah.
Did y'all have a favorite monologue? 'Cause there were a lot of really good monologues in this.
I mean, it's kind of hard not to think that the Crispin's Day speech right before the
Oh.
battle is like one of the most famous speech. I didn't even remember that, we few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For whoever takes arms with me will always be my brother.
That's
And
Henry
it's like,
V.
it's like that's quoted all the time, and it's like that's quoted in Band of Brothers, the TV show, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. And it's like, the fact that he got them so riled up when they were so desperate, and then they go out and they absolutely stomp the French after that speech. It's like all they needed were to be like They needed to wake up and be
Yeah.
like, I'm here right now. And I'm not going to like hope that other people come. They're going to think, man, I really wish I was there because it was such an awesome victory.
Yeah.
And then they go out and barely anyone, except the kids, die. Like what, 35
Yeah.
English dead? And it's mostly the luggage boys.
I think they said something like that. I think they like say like 3 names of lords, including the Earl of York.
Yeah.
And then the 35 dead.
Yeah.
I know that you mentioned.
I actually have a different one. It's this scene legit. I don't want to sound like a nerd here, but it gave me goosebumps. I
That's very fair.
was like not really into it, and then once more onto the breach, I was
Yes.
like, I'm in. I don't understand what you're saying, but you're speaking my language right now.
It's that's another great
Where he
line.
comes through and he's like, we're gonna do this, and especially like the guy at the top of the castle, he was like, we're not gonna, and Henry was like, we're coming in then. He was like, okay.
So that's funny because my favorite is also not one of those two.
Whoa.
This one's actually a little more personal for me. It is the tennis ball speech at the beginning of the movie. It's the Muck brothers and their sons, Muck mothers from their sons, Muck
Yeah.
rolls down, and that's a great speech. I used to have that memorized for a
Oh,
little
you
bit
did.
because when I was in my middle teenage years, for a while I went to this youth theater in New Britain,
Oh,
and
really?
they were going to put on a performance of The Tempest, which is another Shakespeare play.
Yes.
And I auditioned for the play, having memorized and performed that speech for that play. Never actually joined onto the play. I got offered a part, but we had some stuff happening, and I was just like, nah. But that was just certainly a fun experience, and I played Henry V in another I actually did get a chance to play Henry V in this really kind of weird play that was done by this group where this is a gang of 10 to 15 kids of various ages from 7 to 15.
Yeah.
And it's a small youth theater. And this was a play where everybody played. It was honestly surprisingly deep for a little kid's performance. Everybody played 2 characters, one from a musical and then one from a Shakespearean play. And so I in this one play played both Seymour from Little Shop of Horrors
Really?
and also Henry V. That was a weird experience. I'll tell you that much. It was a very, very fun experience, but a weird one.
Yeah. I mean, and you know the Tempest at least vaguely. I recorded Southern's version of that. And was that edited or was that a 1-to-1? Adaptation.
Southern, unless you were here years before me, Southern never did The Tempest.
Or was it a different show?
It must have been. Let's see. I mean, I know Elm Shakespeare Company did The Tempest at some point in the past 4 years while I was here. Might have been that. I know we've done Antigone. We did Galatea. We did. I don't know. Those are the only stage plays I remember. So I don't know. I don't know last time we did Shakespeare. Is Antigone Shakespeare?
I don't know. I'm not.
Or no,
Shakespearean
that was
expert.
Greek. That's Sophocles or whatever.
Yeah.
So then, I don't know what you're
I
talking
mean,
about.
I would believe Shakespeare would have done an adaptation of that because he did lean a lot on the classics. And of course, always with a lot of the plays, he was always a bit of a kiss up to the crown. But I mean, think about it, about the time he was in, and it was that sort of patriotism and all for the Queen. That is what got their stability as a nation under Queen Elizabeth I.
I think a lot of people, and it's I think one of those things I've seen a lot happen to a lot of people is Shakespeare's this boring old guy you read in high school, and then later on in life you learn, oh, this guy invented literally hundreds of words that we now use.
Yeah.
His plays were he was a celebrity in his day and age, very, very popular, his plays very well known, and just there is so much culture in our society that like cultural references that come from Shakespeare stuff.
They couldn't all make it into the modern dialect, but a lot of them did.
Yeah.
So I do have one more question on my list of questions. If you wanna, I'll go ahead and tell you.
And thank you. You're the first to bring a list.
Thank you.
Like,
I knew I had to have one. Here's my list.
Yes.
I had a
my
list in my
four
head.
Put that on my list.
Oh,
You're gonna bring a list for
you
the
see,
show.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah, like Shakespeare, it rhymes. Do you think Shakespeare existed? Because there's that conspiracy theory that he was just a collective of
he
people.
definitely did.
Ah,
I think he definitely did.
I don't know anything about that.
I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% if Shakespeare was a pen name or not, but I think I believe he existed.
I mean, you just think about the writing. I mean, like, I get it. People did more often talk that way, but I'm just like, I don't know. There's a way to Shakespeare's writing. I don't see how it could be different people.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you put Shakespeare in the context of like very prolific, if you put him, he was essentially a Quentin Tarantino of his day, right? He was obsessed with making stuff very just like pushing forward on everything, and that was kind of like his vibe. So
He was a dialogue
I
guy.
get the feeling that he was a workaholic.
Yes.
So the last question I had was, what do you guys think young filmmakers of today, including ourselves, can learn from the film in some way? Like, what is a lesson that you can take from this?
Well, I think I already talked about the at the beginning the issue of Lord of the Ringsification. Everything's got to be wide open and big. You've got to show the scale of everything. That's a good way to sink your budget. But you can, through crafty use of angles or being smart with your extras, make 10 men feel like 100. And in general, I think this film is just very smartly made. I think when you keep seeing movies coming out on budgets of $350 or million odd dollars, you're thinking, and you see the visuals and you're thinking, I don't see where that money went. It is just a product of the big spending, which probably isn't going to last forever because movies are not making a lot of money right now. But you
put it all on streaming.
Put it all on streaming.
Put it all on streaming.
Yes. And make it through ad revenue.
Guys, I promise if we put this on Tubi, it'll make us more money.
Yeah.
Guys.
And so many people will watch it.
Gotta put it on streaming.
I actually did watch this movie on Tubi.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
that was the one that supported subtitles. Pluto TV did not, so I watched it on Tubi. And then I realized it was on YouTube for free also.
Oh, really?
Which
Oh, it
probably
was
would have
free
been
on
better.
YouTube? Oh, man.
No, free with ads.
Oh, free with, well, yeah, it was free with ads on Tubi too.
I know, but it would have been probably better quality on YouTube.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think something to take away is one of my catchphrases, one of the things I say all the time is everything's been done already. And I think this is a good example of it is okay to not be the writer and the director and the producer of all that. Like Quentin Tarantino has his thing where he's written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. But I think we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. If everything's been done already, it's perfectly fine to take something like Shakespeare that is well known and proven itself to be good, to stand up and just do it your own way. Because the trick is now, if everything's been done, you have to do something that stands out. So by making a Shakespeare movie in 1989 or 1990 or 2000, whatever, that stands out right there because everyone's like, ooh, Shakespeare. Shakespeare from 600 years ago? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So I think that is the something to take away is like just do something proven if you don't have that magic where it's like I wrote and I'm gonna direct this. This is all from my mind, from nothing to something.
Well,
my personal takeaway from this, the thing that I was thinking,
I hear the rain through my headphones.
Oh yeah.
It's really beating down right now.
Jesus. Oh, I'm gonna have to.
We're recording this when it was raining.
Yeah. All right. Here's what I would say. To me, this film really feels like a theater performance put to screen. It feels like just a very high budget theater performance. It's the way things are. It's the way angles are set up. It's the way that lighting is set up. It feels very much like they're on a stage performing, in my opinion. And I think that the lesson that you can take away from this is don't look only at movies for inspiration. Don't look only at films, because this takes so much from theater. Most of these people are theater actors, and not just from theater, from books, from nowadays web series and things on the internet have gotten so well produced.
Life.
That,
Life.
yeah.
Take experience from life.
Take experience from life. The point is when you're, I think as a young filmmaker, if I'm trying to think of something, I don't want to only be looking at it from the perspective of, okay, well, Kubrick did this, Spielberg did this, Tarantino did this. How do we move this around? You know, oh, I want to get this shot, and this shot because these are shots that are references to these films. Like, look at other areas. Look at theater. Look at how, go to a local theater. If you're making a Shakespeare adaptation, go to theater productions and see how those are.
Good ones.
Good ones.
Good ones.
Good ones.
But yeah, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I would continue my thought, because I got a little into the industry, and it is important to think about the industry. Obviously, the money side of things, the way to economically make a film and make it look good. I mean, I've never worked with a budget. I guess, we get some pretty high quality stuff rented here, but
We do.
It's true, we do.
you can do a lot with a little. I think, actually, my dad watched the first episode, and when he heard you said everything's been done, he was like, he didn't believe it 100%. But I think I get what you mean in that everything's been done, as every trope
Yeah.
and every approach to at least a scene has been done.
Yeah.
But just like there's like a bazillion ways you could do like a password, but only so many keys on the keyboard.
Yeah.
There are ways you can twist things with all the different tools of filmmaking we have at our disposal. You got the camera, you got the actors, you got the music, the editing, the lighting, the staging. There could be so many ways you can make something old into something new. And you don't have to focus on one at a time. You could adapt a Shakespeare play and do it totally different in a visual manner. Or you could do something like Romeo plus Juliet, and you could take the idea of the show
Yeah.
and make it into something that's got a new flavor to it.
Yes.
And that's very popular. It's almost a trope in and of itself to be like, we're the different version of this thing,
Yeah.
You know,
we have
away
firearms.
with the boring Shakespeare and the dialogue I can't understand. It's like, on one hand, that is a trope. On the other hand, there is use to it.
Yeah.
But what can young filmmakers learn from this? They can learn that, just as said in the beginning, with our cameras and our sets and our costumes cannot transport you literally to this time. Open up your minds, be brought to this epic campaign. Obviously, it was one thing to be in the theater and to have almost no visual indicators of the location or the battle, and you would have to just imagine what it would have looked like. But even in film, you can't make it 100% real, but you can stimulate the imagination through clever tricks, through maybe not making that shot just too wide to be like, oh, and that's where you run out of extras,
That's a perfect way. I think that filmmakers should really think like that. You want to stimulate the imagination of your viewers.
Yeah. And the best way to stimulate the imagination is to not tell them how to imagine it.
True. I think it's a very fine line. I think this will be my last big thing. The narrator, because I was thinking about that. I feel like that could very easily turn into a crutch, where the narrator in any medium can just tell you what's going on. So I think letting the imagination go is very, very important, because the narrator could have easily been like, and at the end of the battle, more than 10,000 French had died, but a very small number of British men died, and Henry was then crowned king, and here's everything that happened in the next 100 years. But no, you're left to imagine. You're like, okay, so he just got with his cousin. Time for awesomeness. Time for prosper to reign upon England for hundreds of years. But you don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't keep France, but, you know, they
didn't.
still got pretty big
They
after
did.
that.
They did.
So,
The sun never sat on the British Empire for
Until
a while.
for a while. It would take a few hundred years before
would.
that whole empire bit. But all that to be said, and we didn't even get to talk about the church and all that.
The church.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Maybe that's good.
The devious look as Henry walks out of the room at the
Yes,
start, and they
that
turn
was-
to each other. They turn to each other full like.
It's like you don't
I
need
was
to
like,
say anything.
oh.
It's like, okay, if that's imagination right there. If you can't make the audience understand the words, you can get them to
get them-
understand the emotions. And
Even
a
I
little-
understood
and a
that.
little.
Because I was like,
work.
I don't understand any of the dialogue, but as soon as those guys did that, I was like, oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no, it's the
Yeah.
church. Because then I saw them in the next scene with France, and I was like, wait a minute. I thought weren't they in England a second ago?
Nope, because they're everywhere.
The church is everywhere.
Well, that was fun. I think that is about the timestamp we usually end off on.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got no visual indicator in there because we didn't have Jay today, but hopefully next time. That was a great episode. Cass, thank you for coming on.
Thank you
Indeed.
for having me. I was glad to share with you a great film.
Yes, and it was great. And a
Yes.
little more stimulated conversation than Yellow Submarine. No insult to Yellow Submarine.
No one's with the submarine.
But, yeah.
A lot more to go off here.
Yeah. So thank you for stopping by to watch this episode and put that on my list. I've not yet forgotten to go because I just checked it off.
Yes.
Yes.
Love that. Every episode he does that.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's a thing. So thank you for watching. Thank you for coming. And till next time.
Don't forget, once more onto the breach, dear friends.
Yes. Thank you
Once
for
more.
coming.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Battle.
Battle.
Fighting.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness.
Shield and,
then
sword.
we
Don't
fade
forget.
out.
Don't forget.
This evening's content was provided by the Mighty Empire Productions YouTube Film Corporation. Thank you for watching and have a good night.